Some neighbors and friends came early, before midnight struck, to eat and drink and gossip, to tap toes to the music of pipes and fiddles. So the house filled with sound and song and fellowship as the old clock on the wall struck its midnight notes. The old year died on the last chime, and the new year was greeted with cheers, kisses, and voices raised in Auld Lang Syne. All this Ross hugged sentimentally to his heart, with Angie tucked against his side and his brother's arm linked with his. As the song ended, as glasses were raised, the front door swung open wide. "The first footer!" someone exclaimed. Ross watched the door, expecting one of the Fraser boys or maybe Delroy Magruder to step in, all dark-haired youths of good nature, as tradition required. The first to enter the house in the new year must be so to ensure good luck. But all that swept in was wind and the thin snow and the deep country dark. As he stood closest, Ross walked to the door himself, looked out, stepped out. The chill running through him he attributed to the bluster of wind and the odd, holding silence under the wind. Air holding its breath. Was that a rustle of wings, a long shadow? Dark over dark? With a quick shudder, Ross McLeod stepped back in, a man who would never enjoy another feast or welcome another new year, and so became the first footer. "Must not have latched it," he said, closing the door. Chilled still, Ross stepped over to the fire, held his hands to the flame. An old woman sat beside the fire, her shawl wrapped tight, her cane leaning against the chair. He knew her as the young Fraser boy's great-granny. "Can I get you a whiskey, Mrs. Fraser?" She reached out with a thin, age-spotted hand, gripping his hand with surprising strength when he offered it. Her dark eyes bored into his. "'Twas written so long ago, most have forgot." "What was?" "The shields would be broken, the fabric torn, by the blood of the two ha de Danann. So now the end and the grief, the strife and the fear, the beginning and the light. I ne'er thought to live for it." He laid a hand over hers, gentle, indulgent. Some, he knew, said she was one of the Fae. Others said she was a bit doddering in the mind. But the chill stabbed again, an ice pick in the base of his spine. "It starts with you, child of the ancients." Her eyes darkened, her voice deepened, sending a fresh frisson of dread down his spine. "So now, between the birth and the death of time, power rises, both the dark and the light, from the long slumber. Now begins the blood-soaked battle between them. And with the lightning and a mother's birth pangs comes the one who wields the sword. The graves are many, with yours the first. The war is long, with no ending writ." Pity moved over her face as her voice thinned again, as her eyes cleared. "But there's no blame in it, and blessings will come as magic's long-shadowed breathe again. There can be joy after the tears." With a sigh, she gave his hand a small squeeze. "I'd have a whiskey, and thanks for it." "Of course." Ross told himself it was foolish to be shaken by her nonsensical words, by those probing eyes, but he had to settle himself before he poured the whiskey for her, and another for himself. The room hushed with anticipation at the booming knock on the door. Hugh opened it to one of the Fraser boys, Ross couldn't say which, who was greeted with applause and pleasure as he stepped in with a grin and a loaf of bread, though the time to bring luck had come and gone. Still, by the time the last guests left at near to 4 a.m., Ross had forgotten his unease. Maybe he drank a little too much, but the night was for celebration, and he only had to stagger up to bed. Angie slipped in beside him. Nothing stopped her from cleansing off her makeup and slathering on her night cream, and sighed. "Happy New Year, baby," she murmured. He wrapped an arm around her in the dark. "Happy New Year, baby."